Hello, peeps. Welcome to another Power Pack Phillips podcast. Before we start our notes for today, if you guys would make yourself a reminder, your homework is going to be from your workbook, page 12. Again, I'm going to assign you problems 1 through 4. Tonight, I would like you to find the complement for problems 1 through 4. Find the complement for problems 1 through 4 on page 12 of your workbook. Just a friendly reminder, this is how your workbook is going to show complement. Remember that the game makers are going to not be so kind and loving. On the EOC, or the games, complement will be the squiggly or the Tyndale sign right here, or complement will be the little apostrophe up here. So just keep that in mind. The game makers are going to write complement one of 2 ways, not like the book. And my last friendly reminder, make sure your homework is done with a pencil and do your homework in your spiral. Do your homework in your spiral. Alrighty, let's get to our notes. And they're off. Notes for today, we will be continuing lesson 2.5. This will be part 2 of the distributive property. So please write your notes/homework spiral, lesson 2.5, part 2, distributive property. Alrighty guys, first example I would like you to write down in your spiral. Please write the expression, nice vocabulary word, bears, parentheses 2 minus n parentheses 8. We're going to do the distributive property, but instead of doing it backwards here like the book does it, I am going to suggest to you that you simply rewrite the problem so that the 8 is in the front. We're going to put the 8 in the front, and we're going to take the parentheses 2 minus n and put it here in the back. So all I'm doing is putting the 2 minus n here in the back, and I'm putting the 8 in the front. Now I'm just going to group them together, and I want them touching each other. I want them touching each other. When they're touching each other, that means multiplication. So now I can do the distributive property, or you can think of it as 2 and minus n are trick-or-treating. You're going to give candy to the 2, and you're going to give candy to the variable minus n. So the first thing I suggest you do is I would multiply the 8 by the 2 here. Why am I multiplying? Because they are touching each other. So I'm going to do 8 times a positive 2, and 8 times a positive 2 is going to give me a positive 16. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the number 1 here in front of this letter n. I'm going to put a 1 here in front of this n. Now I'm going to multiply the 8 by, highlighter, 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 I'm going to multiply the 8 by the negative 1n. So go back to our pen. We're going to multiply the 8 by the negative 1n. So there's my negative sign, and I'm going to put a 1 and the variable n, bears, right here. Now I'm simply going to multiply 8 by negative 1. 8 times negative 1 gives me negative 8. And then remember, your letter n is like that dog that just follows you everywhere you go. So the letter n is like that dog that follows you everywhere you go. Now I have 16, which is positive, and a minus or negative 8n. Now, do be careful. You should be able to tell me right away that you cannot combine these because they are not like terms. So I'm going to give this a star, and since this is our dog, we love dogs. I cannot put these together. They are not like terms. That is my solution for this problem. Alright guys, last problem. If you copy the expression, parentheses y plus 7, parentheses y in your spiral. While you're doing that, I'm just going to say blah, 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 blah. No, not really. Just want to make sure you're paying attention. I'm going to do the same thing that I did in the last problem. Instead of doing the distributive property backwards, I'm just going to put the variable y here at the front. And then I'm going to put my parentheses y plus 7. Give me a second to regroup here. Bada bing, bada boom. Now I want them touching each other because that means multiplication in math. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute, or I'm going to multiply y by y. Or I'm giving candy to the y and the 7. See my trick-or-treaters? So I have y times y. So on your paper, please write y times y. Why? Because I asked you to. Ha, 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 ha. Now you got to be really careful when you are multiplying variables. Remember, when you're multiplying variables, there is an invisible exponent of 1. So my visual people, you might want to put a 1 here next to both of your letters. There's an invisible exponent of 1. Now, when I am multiplying exponents, I'm really adding the exponents. When I'm multiplying exponents, I'm really adding exponents. So 1 plus 1 gives me 2. So y times y is going to give me y squared. So up here, if you would write y squared. Now be careful. Do not get confused because we'll talk about this later on in the year. But if you were adding y plus y, it's different. There is an invisible coefficient of 1, and we'll talk about coefficients tomorrow. So this would be a 1 in front of the y's. 1 plus 1 gives me 2. Here I added the numbers in front, or I added the coefficients. So be careful. There are different rules for multiplying letters and adding letters. Do not get them confused. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute or multiply y by 7. So if you would, on your paper, please write y times, and that is a positive 7. So you can either write positive 7 here, or you can just write plain 7. Now, this may look confusing to you, but I'm going to suggest that you put the number 1 here in front of the y. Now this makes it easier because now I simply do 1 times 7, which gives me 7. And that's right, you're learning. The y is like that dog that follows you everywhere you go. The stray that just follows you throughout the streets of Lehigh. And if you don't live in Lehigh, too bad, pretend that you do. So I'm going to bring my letter y over to here. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my y squared and my 7y, and I'm going to write it up here. So I have y squared, and I have 7y. Remember that this 7y is not negative, it is positive. And just like we did in the last problem, I'm going to do hearts and stars. I'm going to give the 7y, because we love our animals, a heart, and I am going to give this guy a star. Now some of you would say, but Mr. Phillips, you're crazy. Yes, I am. Mr. Phillips, I'm going to try to put the y's together. I cannot put them together when I'm adding, because this is an exponent of 2, this is an exponent of 1. When I'm adding, the exponents have to be the same. So, this is my solution. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for another PowerPack Phillips podcast where we will talk about coefficients, variables, and constants. Nice vocabulary. Da bears.